Consider this the storm before the even bigger storm that's just around the corner with year-end list season. This certainly won't be divisive at all. Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for a very special episode of my Countdown Series 7 on Sunday. Today I'm going to be talking about what are, in my opinion, the 7 worst artists of the 2010s decade. That's January 1st, 2010 until here in 2019. And I know what you may be thinking, the decade's not over yet? Well, yeah, that's fair, but also for an artist to actually make a decade list, I feel that they have to have established themselves at least a little bit, so we've had more than enough time. 2019 is almost over at this point, so sit back and relax because you're gonna get angry later. Who am I kidding? I don't know how you're gonna react. You could be angry, happy, sad, mean, somewhere in between, or not even caring at all. But I do hope that you enjoy seeing me count down the top 7 worst artists of the decade. Keep in mind, of course, some of this is gonna be done for entertainment purposes, but this is genuinely how I feel. Make sure you watch the entire video because there are gonna be some dishonorable mentions before we get to the number 1 reveals. So thank you so much for tuning in. Artist to me, I guess, just means not just the music that they're putting out, but the persona behind it. I'll try to dive in and quickly explain why I have so much disdain for these artists. And just because they make the list, it doesn't mean that there aren't necessarily songs that I like from said artist. But overall, they just left a nasty stamp and imprint on the decade that I'm never gonna be able to scrub off. Please drop a like on this video, subscribe, and join the neighborhood. And let's just go ahead and get the ball rolling. You know I'm all about them lists. No trouble, because at number 7, we have Miss MEGHAN TRAINOR, an artist that really popped onto the scene in 2014 in a more prominent way. She's an artist that just screams, my parents bought this for me. I mean, I could never really get over that. I mean, yes, the knocking on the doors from the parents and consistently pushing these messages that were very easy and prevalent to break through. Her breakout hit, in fact, in 2014, All About That Bass, was a one of body positivity, supposedly, but it also kind of shamed skinny people at the same time. And I'm all for everybody feeling okay in their own skin, but why put down one set of people in spite of backing up the other? I just feel that so much of MEGHAN's music is so spineless, just so inconsequential. It's trying to make these statements, and I think that she's a lot more profound in her own head than what actually translates to tape. These are songs that are made for the very dumbed down masses that will dance to anything. And in fact, if you're dancing to Me Too, then you could be a major part of that problem. I listed that as my worst song of 2016. Her debut album title was just insufferable, but thank you. I mean, the first time around, the doo-woppiness, it was one thing, but the music, I guess, at times was a little bit more okay to stomach. That follow-up, Thank You, just is something that goes down. It's a pretty little pill, and then you throw it right back up. So many songs from MEGHAN TRAINOR just reek of entitlement. I cannot stand the entire way that she portrays herself, even on songs like Dear Future Husband, which are essentially a list of demands of what she would want her husband to do. Poor Junie from Spy Kids, he's stuck with her for now. Thankfully, we haven't had to deal with a ton of her music because her album Treat Myself has continuously been delayed. MEGHAN, honey, I've been sitting on this thumbnail for like 1.5 years. Are you gonna put it out so that I can finally use it? Social justice and preaching to the choir. Number 6, HALSEY. There's a name that we haven't been able to avoid, and for the longest time, I couldn't really pronounce it correctly, apparently. I had been avoiding that. But unfortunately, what I could not evade for very long at least was the entire output of her discography. Now, HALSEY is not a terrible singer, at least not all the time. She's had some rough live outings, I think we're all well aware of those, and also so many songs that will just grate on your every last nerve, from Now or Never, which is a little bit more innocent, to something as daring and bold and actually awful and just terribly toxic as New Americana. Halsey poises herself as one of these females that's just going to knock down all the barriers for everyone. She has all of the answers. Come with me to my dystopian society. And instead of actually wanting to go there with her, I just want to lock myself in a castle on the other side of the planet, somewhere far, far away from somebody who can just put out these songs and messages that feel so forced, like I know exactly what I think they want to hear, so I write about it. Now, granted, Halsey has been moving in a little bit better of a direction. I find some of her songs can be okay at first, and then they grate on my nerves even more over time, like, say, Nightmare. We'll have to see how Manic turns out, but hey, that's not coming out till next decade, so that's not for me to worry about right now. Halsey is one of those people that just continues to plague the decade with different messages, different styles, and I know a ton of people absolutely eat up her music, but again, I use the shallow pool analogy because I feel that everything is so surface level for the most part, refusing to really go in and tackle what the actual issues are. Instead, it's more like somebody who puts something out in the hopes of getting a ton of retweets or likes or shares or upvotes or whatever because, hey, I said something that everybody else already knows, but it's my truth over here, so I'm just gonna put it out there even though it was probably said by somebody else already. I don't know her life, but I also know that we did have some Twitter beef back in the day. Sorry about that one, Halsey, but again, not really for me overall. Bro Country, Thy Name is number 5. Florida Georgia Line. There is a duo that I have not been able to just get out of my head, unfortunately. Not just their music, because fortunately, I have enough great music to kind of weigh that out and just make me feel less disdain. But then I see their name popping up at the Country and Music Awards ceremonies, and oh, they've scored another hit, Pray, and That's Why I Roll, and That's Why I Cruise, the remix with Nelly. The decade has been theirs, and they also kind of inadvertently rolled in this new era of country music. When Cruise came out around 2012, I think the country still had its roots intact for the most part, but songs like Cruise and the crossover appeal that it had really signaled to the entire country music industry in the mainstream sense that it's okay to just sing about back roads, beer, dirt, and working hard, loving God and America over and over and over again, and it's gonna be okay. Take a little truck down a back road, baby, we got all night, who knows how it's gonna go. And then every song tried to replicate it. In fact, they tried to copy their own songs so many times, and they've co-written Tyler and Kelly? Is that their names? To be completely fucking honest, I do not give a shit what their names are. I know that Tyler's one of them, and I also know what a sin that they've been to country music. And as somebody who at this point has been able to go back and embrace his childhood love of country music, what I grew up on, this is not my country music. Give me something more under the radar. Give me even Casey Musgraves any day. But then again, country radio playing women's music? Those two things don't quite add up, apparently. Number 4, white Australian rapper that sounds like black woman from Atlanta. Iggy Azalea. That's her name. That's an artist that blew up around 2013, 2014. Fancy featuring Charlie XCX. A song that I still don't mind, was one that put her on the map, and her early records were definitely, as a whole, pretty damn abhorrent. Her entire image and the way that she kind of props herself up on this false sense of swagger and confidence is really hard to just keep down. It's something that you listen to and you can actively feel sick because you're like, is she rinsing and repeating the exact same songs and just altering some of the punchlines? The punchlines don't hit. Her flows are not good at all. Her overall cadence is agitating as hell. If you listen to, like, say, 10 songs in a row just from her random shuffle on Spotify or Apple Music, I guarantee that it's pretty much gonna be one of those challenges, like how far can you actually make it before you lose your mind? Iggy Too Biggie did go through some legal disputes during the decade after a falling out with Grand Hustle, the label that T.I. created, her protege, her mentor, whatever you want to call it, whatever their relationship was. It fell apart, it crumbled, as did her music career. Digital Distortion, Survive the Summer, and God forbid, in my defense, one of the worst albums of 2019, something that I can get incredibly salty about because she went through all of this supposed hardship and then writes an album with so many songs that just repeat about like, oh, you bitches don't have your name in my mouth, I'm coming for you, I'm coming for your throat, and then, you know, this pussy and the litter box. Oh god, I'm having horrible flashbacks right now. Pretty much stay the hell away from her music. That's what I'm passing on to you guys. You'd be wise to actually listen to me, but again, if you choose not to, then listen with caution, or with your earbuds somewhere off in the distance so that you can only slightly hear some of the sounds coming out, because again, you're not gonna make it too far. Well, of course, band can be artist too, and band has made list at number 3. I don't know why I'm speaking like a caveman. Possibly it's because Ivan Moody, the leader of this band, kind of reminds me of one. Not only the way that he shows up for concerts and interviews, but also the way that he writes his songs with such brutal minimalism that I can't even bear to take it in. I mean, when I do album reviews of their music, I always have to bring in my good old friend XX Brutal Swag 69 XX. Did I get that right?
Fucking close enough, I guess. XX Brutal Swag 69 XX. Don't know how hard that could be to possibly fucking remember, John. And if you're gonna put some respect on my name, why don't you put a little respect on the name of Ivan fucking Moody? You don't know what he's been through. You don't know where he's been. Okay?
Okay then. Well, I was just gonna say that you do a lot for the review, but okay, yeah, I bring in this roommate that doesn't pay me any kind of rent at all. You live here for free, buddy. So it is what it is. Their music is extremely just bro-y, something that you're gonna be chugging Monster Energy to, which, what do you know? Much to my surprise, they're actually sponsored by Monster Energy. Go get jacked up and then dance around on your Razor scooter to some of their hit songs like Boots and Blood. I guarantee that if you have any kind of sanity in your head, you won't do that to yourself, but apparently I've just continuously done that to myself for the sake of content. It is a gold mine, that's for sure, and they've gotten consistently worse throughout the decade. We got the early albums in the decade, like The Wrong Side of Heaven and The Righteous Side of Hell, parts 1 and 2, and there were a few good tracks on there that I could honestly admit were fine enough, like the title track, for example. I think that Ivan Moody does have a decent voice. We heard that back in the day with his old band Motograder, but he refuses to write anything that doesn't sound like an angry third grader that didn't get his way and got sent to the principal's office, and oh no, mommy and daddy got a call, so now I'm mad and I'm pissed off and I'm gonna write songs about it. That's essentially what they've been doing since 2013, and their output is getting worse and worse. And justice for none, pass. Pass forever. We're getting closer and closer to the top of the shit show. Can you smell it, neighbors? And number 2, we have Cardi B, a former stripper that turned into a rapper and has actually seen a great deal of success, unfortunately. Now, I didn't want to put Cardi B and Nicki Minaj on the list, and especially since Nicki kinda did start off last decade, as did some of these others, I wanted to give a newer and even shittier artist an opportunity to make the list. Cardi, 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 saying all these stupid fucking ad-libs over and over again, and yelling to probably show her side of things. She just seems like one of those people that would just talk progressively louder to think that she's actually winning the argument or the conversation, the debate, whatever is going on. This is an artist that's been confused with a lot of other people. I mean, the way that she flows on a lot of tracks and everything else, I'm not gonna say stolen, but borrowed at times. And also, she's done a lot of shitty things in her personal life to get to where she is now. Need I bring up some of those things? No. I'd rather make it more about the music, but it's hard to just entirely do that when the public persona is so fucking agitating. For me to actually include Cardi B on this list meant that I had to sit down and listen to more of Cardi B's music just to be sure of my placement. God forbid that I ever wish that torture upon anyone else. And I know that some will say that I'm exaggerating for the sake of this, and maybe to an extent, my overextension of my personality and thoughts, sure, but overall, I do just have a ton of fucking hatred for her music. I can't stand it. I can't stand the fact that a lot of people look up to her for some reason and get some sort of motivation or inspiration from her music. Like, how? How are we listening to Bodak Yellow? How are we listening to I Like It and feeling anything other than ear torture? As promised, before I reveal the #1 pick for my worst artist of the decade, I have some dishonorable mentions to get through, so let's quickly breeze through those. Believe it or not, Jason Derulo is a dishonorable mention here, and he actually had an okay enough start to his career last decade in, say, 2009 with some of his hit songs like What You Say and In My Head, but after that, and playing the good guy for a little bit, he decided to go bad, and his music entirely went to shit. You've heard Talk Dirty? Trumpets? Yeah, let's move along. Ray Shrimmerd, or backwards spells ear drummers. Wow, that's clever. A lot more clever than the majority of the music that they put out. I mean, Black Beatles, that was catchy. Gucci Mane, nice verse there. But outside of that, and the somewhat enjoyable Mannequin Challenge, I have to say that their auto-tuned to hell and back voices paired together over some of the most stereotypical bland generic trap beats and production from Mike Will Made It is insufferable. Migos are up next, and yeah, they're kind of responsible for some of the longest albums. Culture Album 2, Culture 3 coming soon, that's what they're always saying and teasing. We got the members like Quavo, Offset, and Takeoff, and they pretty much do the same thing over and over again. And outside of the occasionally solid single or feature, I just feel that they rely so heavily on padding up their entire albums with nothing but filler. And they've inspired a lot of copycats, which makes them one of the worst of the decade. I blame them. Speaking of people who have entirely too much output and cannot justify putting out so much stuff because they have no idea what quality over quantity means, we have rapper Logic, who his fans will praise as being one of the GOATs, one of the best rappers of all time. But I'm sorry, I have to roll my eyes and laugh at that. This dude is incredibly cheesy. I can't take the majority of his music seriously, and he's only getting worse. I mean, I listened to Under Pressure in 2014 and thought it was solid enough. I still like some of the songs from that, but my God, this dude doesn't know where to cut himself off. He keeps going with the mixtapes. Every week it seems like there's new Logic this, new Logic that, and a horrible supermarket visual album. I mean, he's had a couple of the worst albums probably of 2019, and he's still trucking on. Luke Bryan, need I say anything else? Again with the bro country. I know maybe he could have made the list. Consider him interchangeable with Florida Georgia Line, because the bro country, the relying on the same tropes over and over again, it's all gonna be heard and found in his music, and I don't believe a word that comes out of his damn mouth. I didn't include Bad Baby on the full list just because I kinda hate calling her an artist and I also hate talking about her. But yeah, we made somebody this horrible, this toxic, famous because of a fucking Dr. Phil interview. And now she's collabing with the likes of Lil Yachty, another person I'd give a dishonorable mention to, and many more, and making hits and tons of money. All because she was shitty to everybody around her and treated other human beings like garbage. Cool! Rapper 6ix9ine, of course, has to get a mention as one of the absolute worst artists of the decade. He didn't make my actual list just because he didn't put out that much music before he ended up getting jail time, which somebody as stupid as him posting everything all over his music videos and social media, of course he's gonna get locked up for gang activity. The Skittle is in prison now, and his music is unfortunately probably gonna make a comeback next decade. Apparently he's already been in talks for signing label deals and stuff. I don't know why anybody would want this piece of shit human being anywhere near them, but I guess money talks louder than anything else. Now that we've gotten those dishonorable mentions behind us, let's find out the big reveal, the #1 worst artist of the 2010s. Remember the good old innocent Chris Brown? I need you, boo. I gotta see you, boo. And with you. Well, throw that out the fucking window and obviously added a few domestic assault cases, some other bullshit with guns and a lot of other physical assault arrests and other allegations that have been made. And here we are at this version of Chris Brown, who still somehow is only like 30 years old. I feel like he should be like 40 because I remember him back in 2005. but he was really, really young back then at the time he was gaining hits like Run It, and in the 2010s decade, he's, transformed himself, let's call it that, because he had that hit song, I Can Transform Ya, and that was one of the biggest turning points of his career, I feel like. At this point, in 2019, he's making albums that go the Migos route and just add so many songs to these horribly padded track lists. Obviously, we had Fortune and X, and those were absolutely mind-numbing, asinine at how terrible they were. I just wanted to throw them in my backyard and bury them never to see the light of day for anybody ever again. But instead, we get bonus track on top of already long as fuck album like Heartache or Heartbreak on a Full Moon, and I made it through about half of that record before I started losing my shit and said, what am I doing with my life? I don't have to do this. And then he did it again in 2019 with another long as fuck album. Why, Indigo? Why? And what is this album art? What is every album art he's done this decade? Your time's gonna be up one of these days, Chris, and you're just as bad as the complaints that I made about Halsey. I believe on both sides of the spectrum that people go far too far, and people shouldn't be allowed to get away with their bullshit. And Chris Brown is a master manipulator, always playing the victim. I'm a good dude, I'm out here, I'm breezy, and he's got the likes of Justin Bieber propping him up. We don't need other people propping up shitty people when we knowingly know that they've done horrible things again and again. It's a pattern. It's not just a one-time thing that we can see that they're growing, they're moving on, they're trying to become a better person, because I would look into that and I would maybe try and get behind that. But Chris has never shown remorse, he never will, and his music is terrible to boot. So there you go. Number 1, worst of the decade. How we feeling out there, neighbors? You nodding your head in agreement, or are you angry as hell with me? Either way, I would kind of love to know what you think in the comment section down below, and at the end of the day, it really is just my opinion about these terrible artists, in my eyes at least. I have my reasons, and I'd love to know about yours. I try not to put on any like meme or TikTok or whatever artist, because again, those are fleeting notions of success, and I really don't want to count them. I tried to only count people that actually got genuine hits. I'm sure some of them were sponsored by some sort of viral marketing, but whatever. These were some popular ones that left their mark, for better or for worse, on the decade of the 2010s. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe for the love of music. If you want to see more year-end content, then tap this playlist here. And obviously, if you're new, then you don't want to miss out on subscribing, because all of my 2019 year-end content is just around the corner. All of my socials that you see here can be found in the description down below, including my Patreon, and I will see you very soon for more on ARTV.